Step behind the scenes of the beloved sitcom Laverne and Shirley, 1976 to 1983, to uncover the tragic fates of its once brilliant stars. Behind the laughter, the witty banter, and the unforgettable moments on screen lay heartbreaking realities, sudden accidents, relentless battles with illness, and mysterious, unexplained deaths. These actors, who once captivated audiences with their undeniable talent and charm, faced personal tragedies that cast long shadows over their Hollywood success. Some struggled with loneliness, depression, and the immense pressures of the entertainment industry. Others endured years of illness, silently bearing their suffering while maintaining a public persona. And some met shocking, untimely ends, leaving behind unanswered questions and lingering sorrow. Though the show became an iconic piece of television history, the lives of those who brought it to life were far from the cheerful world they portrayed on screen. In this emotional exploration, we honor their contributions to Laverne and Shirley while shedding light on the hardships and poignant final chapters that shaped their ultimate destinies, stories that serve as a sobering reminder of the darker side of fame. Penny Marshall was born in 1943, a tough, funny, and fiercely independent girl from the Bronx who would go on to become an icon of television and film. She found fame as Laverne DeFazio, the loud, streetwise, and lovable half of Laverne and Shirley, a role that made her a star but also became an inescapable shadow. Though audiences adored her, behind the scenes, Penny struggled with personal demons, self-doubt, loneliness, and the pressure of Hollywood's relentless expectations. After the show ended, she reinvented herself as a director, making history with Big, 1988, the first film directed by a woman to gross over $100 million, and A League of Their Own, 1992, a beloved classic. Yet, for all her success, happiness remained elusive. Her marriage to director Rob Reiner, once full of love and laughter, fell apart, leaving her wary of love. She never remarried, pouring herself into work and friendships instead. In her later years, her health declined. Battling lung cancer and diabetes, she withdrew from the public eye. When she died in 2018 at the age of 75, from heart failure caused by complications of diabetes, Hollywood lost one of its most groundbreaking women. But perhaps even sadder was the quiet loneliness of her final days, spent away from the spotlight, in a house that had once been filled with the sounds of laughter and success, now only echoing with memories. In the bustling world of 1970s television, Norman Bartold graced the screen with his commanding presence, notably portraying Mr. Hildebrand in the beloved series Laverne and Shirley. Born on August 6, 1928, in Berkeley, California, Bartold's journey was one of dedication and versatility. His filmography boasted roles in classics like Westworld, 1973, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977, showcasing his range as an actor. Beyond the limelight, Bartold served as a corporal in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, a testament to his resilience. His personal life saw him married to Sheila Bartold, with whom he had 2 children, though the marriage ended in divorce. He later found companionship with Mary Virginia Bartold until his untimely death on May 28, 1994, in Rancho Mirage, California, at the age of 65. The curtains fell on his life, leaving behind a legacy etched in celluloid in the hearts of those who knew him. Betty Garrett was born in 1919, a radiant talent with a voice that could light up any stage. She had once been a rising star in MGM musicals, appearing alongside legends like Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly, but Hollywood's brutal blacklist era nearly destroyed her career. Her husband, actor Larry Parks, was named in the anti-communist witch hunts of the 1950s, and suddenly, work became scarce, dreams shattered. Betty clawed her way back, finding new life in television, most notably as the warm yet sharp-tongued Edna Babish, the landlady-turned-wife of Frank DeFazio on Laverne and Shirley. But even in her later successes, there was an undeniable sadness. A career that had once promised so much had been stolen from her in her prime, forcing her to settle for what Hollywood was willing to give back. She outlived many of her peers, but time is unkind to those who once shined brightest. In 2011, at the age of 91, she died after suffering an aortic aneurysm, her heart quite literally giving out. A woman who had spent her life fighting for the stage, for love, for recognition, was gone. And yet, as the credits roll and her name flickers across the screen, one can't help but feel the weight of all she could have been in another life, in another time. Richard Stahl, born on January 4, 1932, in Detroit, Michigan, was a maestro of comedic timing, bringing laughter to audiences with his memorable appearances as various clerks and characters in Laverne and Shirley. His journey into the arts began with magic tricks as a boy, leading him to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. It was there he met his wife, actress Catherine Ish, in 1959, marking the beginning of a lifelong partnership both on and off the stage. Together, they joined the improv comedy group The Committee in San Francisco during the 1960s, crafting a shared legacy of humor. Stahl's film credits spanned from Five Easy Pieces, 1970, to Ghosts of Mississippi, 1996, each role a brushstroke in his portrait of versatility. Despite his jovial on-screen persona, Stahl faced a decade-long battle with Parkinson's disease, leading to his passing on June 18, 2006, in Woodland Hills, California, at the age of 74. He left behind his wife, Catherine, and their two children, Allegra and Oliver, who bore witness to both his comedic genius and his courageous fight against a relentless adversary. Phil Foster was born in 1913, a Brooklyn kid with a quick wit and a thick New York accent that made him unforgettable. He built a career as a stand-up comedian before landing the role of Frank DeFazio, Laverne's tough-but-loving father on Laverne and Shirley. His gruff exterior and wisecracking humor masked a deep love for his on-screen daughter, but behind the scenes, Phil's life was far less heartwarming. He had struggled for years with personal demons, most notably a battle with gambling and financial instability that often left him scrambling to make ends meet. Hollywood can be a cruel place for aging character actors, and as Laverne and Shirley came to an end, so did many of his opportunities. The laughter faded, the roles disappeared, and the man who once made millions laugh was left with little more than memories of his glory days. He suffered a heart attack in 1985, passing away at 72. It was a quiet death for a man who had spent his life making noise, a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly fame and fortune can slip through one's fingers, leaving behind only echoes of what once was. Cindy Williams was born in 1947, a sweet and hopeful dreamer whose talents took her from struggling auditions to starring in George Lucas's American Graffiti, 1973, and then to her most famous role as Shirley Feeney, the bubbly, optimistic best friend on Laverne and Shirley. But behind Shirley's bright smile, Cindy faced turmoil. The show, which once seemed like a dream come true, became a source of stress, with grueling schedules and behind-the-scenes tensions. When she became pregnant in 1982, a dispute over her contract forced her to leave abruptly, marking the end of an era and the start of a career that never quite reached the same heights again. She married musician Bill Hudson, but happiness was short-lived. His infidelity and their stormy relationship led to a bitter divorce, leaving Cindy to raise their two children largely on her own. The years passed, and while she continued acting in smaller roles, the Hollywood spotlight had moved on. Her final years were marked by financial struggles and a quiet longing for the past. In 2023, at the age of 75, she passed away after a brief illness. Her death went largely unnoticed in an industry that had once celebrated her, a painful reminder of how quickly fame fades and how even the brightest stars eventually dim. In the tapestry of television history, certain threads, though less prominent, contribute significantly to the overall pattern. Charles Thomas Murphy, born on May 3, 1941, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, was one such thread. His portrayal of Dr. Gentry in Laverne and Shirley showcased his ability to bring depth to even the most minor characters. Beyond this role, Murphy graced screens in productions like Nickelodeon and History of the World, Part 1, as well as television shows such as Barney Miller and Sanford & Son. His career, however, was marred by a tragic and debilitating accident in 1982, which curtailed his rising trajectory. Despite the shadows that loomed over his later years, Murphy's dedication to his craft remained unwavering. He passed away on September 9, 2006, in Hollywood, California, at the age of 65, leaving behind a legacy of resilience and artistry. David L. Lander was born in 1947, a gifted comedian with an unmistakable voice and a knack for playing the kind of oddball characters audiences couldn't help but love. As Andrew Squiggy Squigman, the greasy, nasal-voiced neighbor on Laverne and Shirley, he became a cult favorite, forever cemented in pop culture alongside his on-screen partner, Michael McKean's Lenny. But while Squiggy was carefree and obliviously confident, David's real life was anything but. Behind the laughter, he was secretly battling multiple sclerosis, a diagnosis he received in 1984, just a year after Laverne and Shirley ended. Fearful that revealing his condition would end his career, he kept it hidden for years, suffering in silence as his body slowly betrayed him. His work dwindled, his mobility declined, and the disease, relentless and cruel, left him relying on a wheelchair. Though he found solace in his wife Kathy and their daughter, the career he had built with such joy and energy slipped away. In December 2020, after decades of pain and struggle, he succumbed to complications from MS at the age of 73. His once vibrant presence, the quick wit and sharp humor that had defined him, had long since faded, leaving behind the shell of a man who had spent his final years trapped in a body that refused to cooperate, a tragic contrast to the lively, unforgettable Squiggy the world remembered. Richard Maul was born in 1943, a towering figure with a deep, resonant voice that could be both menacing and comical. In Laverne and Shirley, he made appearances as a biker and Louis Armstrong, but it was his role as Bull Shannon, the lovable but dim-witted bailiff on Night Court, 1984 to 1992, that cemented his place in television history. Beneath the laughter and towering frame, however, lay a man who struggled with the burden of being typecast, forever trapped in the shadow of his most famous role. His personal life was far from the light-hearted world of sitcoms. 2 marriages ended in divorce, leaving behind a trail of emotional wounds that never quite healed. As he aged, the industry that once embraced him moved on, and he found himself increasingly alone. The man who had once commanded the screen with his booming presence spent his final years in quiet isolation. In 2023, at the age of 80, he passed away in his home, the laughter he had once brought to millions reduced to silence, the echoes of his deep voice fading into eternity. Eddie Mecca was born in 1952, a small-town boy with big dreams who danced his way into America's hearts as Carmine, the big Ragusa on Laverne and Shirley. With his charming smile, smooth moves, and undeniable charisma, he played the underdog with an unwavering dream of making it on Broadway, a dream that often mirrored his own ambitions. But real life wasn't as forgiving as the sitcom world. Though he found work in theater and small TV roles after Laverne and Shirley ended, true stardom always seemed just out of reach. His personal life was equally turbulent. His first marriage ended in divorce, and while he later remarried and had a daughter, the ups and downs of Hollywood took their toll. The bright lights had faded, the calls came less frequently, and the roles grew smaller. By the time of his later years, he was living a quiet, solitary life, a far cry from the exuberant performer he once was. In November 2021, at just 69 years old, he was found dead in his home. The details surrounding his passing were painfully solitary. No grand farewell, no final curtain call, just an actor whose heart gave out, alone in a world that had moved on. The big Ragu had danced his last dance, and the silence left behind was deafening. Helen Page Camp, 1930 to 1991. A familiar face to television audiences, Helen Page Camp played Mrs. Havenworst on Laverne and Shirley, embodying the no-nonsense, yet warm-hearted matron with ease. Born in 1930, she built a prolific career, guest starring in beloved shows like The Mary Tyler Moore Show, All in the Family, and Gimme a Break, always adding depth to her supporting roles. Despite her professional achievements, Camp's personal life was filled with quiet struggles. She married fellow actor Joseph Camp, but their relationship, while long-lasting, was rumored to be fraught with tension and unspoken disappointments. She bore no children, and as she grew older, she found herself increasingly isolated. In 1991, tragedy struck when she suffered a stroke, a cruel and sudden blow that stole away the spark that had lit up so many screens. Her passing went largely unnoticed by the industry she had devoted herself to, her absence leaving a void felt only by the most devoted fans and a handful of friends who truly knew the depth of her talent and heart. ZZ and Ramsey was born in 1929, her unmistakable, gravelly voice and stern countenance making her a fixture of sinister maternal figures in film. On Laverne Shirley, she briefly appeared as a killer lady, a moniker fitting for an actress best known for her terrifying turn as Mama Fratelli in The Goonies, 1985, and her Academy Award-nominated role in Throw Mama from the Train, 1987. But behind the commanding screen presence was a life riddled with pain. A dedicated actress, she found moderate success later in life, only to have her time in the spotlight darkened by tragedy, and battled esophageal cancer, undergoing multiple surgeries that left her struggling to speak. Her final years were a cruel irony. After decades of using her formidable voice to strike fear and laughter into audiences, she was slowly robbed of it. She passed away in 1988 at the age of 59, leaving behind a husband, actor Logan Ramsey, who had watched helplessly as illness claimed the love of his life. Molinaro was born in 1919, his kindly face and warm presence making him one of television's most beloved character actors. On Laverne Shirley, he played Father Gucci, a role fitting for a man whose gentle demeanor made him a natural at portraying fatherly figures. But it was his role as Big Al Del Vecchio in Happy Days, 1974 to 1984, that endeared him to audiences, his signature catchphrase, "Yep, yep, yep, yep," becoming a part of television history. Yet behind the warm smiles and affable persona was a man who had struggled for years to make it in Hollywood, battling self-doubt and financial hardship before finally finding success later in life. Despite his fame, he remained humble, perhaps too humble, as he often felt overlooked in an industry obsessed with youth and glamour. In his later years, health problems slowly chipped away at the vibrant man who had once been the heart of Arnold's Drive-In. He died in 2015 at the age of 96, his body succumbing to complications from gallstone issues. As the lights of Hollywood carried on without him, a generation who had once laughed and cheered for Big Al was left with only memories, the echoes of his gentle laughter fading into the past. Leslie Easterbrook was born in 1949, her striking beauty and effortless charm making her a standout in any role she played. On Laverne Shirley, she brought Rhonda Lee to life, the glamorous yet self-absorbed aspiring actress who never quite achieved stardom. In many ways, Rhonda's unfulfilled dreams mirrored the struggles of so many in Hollywood, and though Leslie would later find fame as Sergeant Callahan in the Police Academy films, she was forever typecast as the sultry tough woman. She longed to be taken seriously as an actress, but the industry had decided what she was, and there was no escape. While she maintained a successful career in television and film, the adulation never seemed enough, the applause never quite filling the emptiness of an industry that could be so cold once the cameras stopped rolling. Though she remains alive today, aging in a world obsessed with youth and reinvention, the whispers of her past roles grow fainter, and the industry that once celebrated her now barely remembers. Wilfred Hyde, born in 1903, was the embodiment of upper-crust British charm, a distinguished character actor with a twinkle in his eye. In Laverne Shirley, he played Colonel Calabac, but it was only a small note in a symphony of a career that spanned decades. Audiences adored him as Pickering in My Fair Lady, 1964. Yet even as he basked in cinematic triumph, his personal life was a quieter affair, tinged with the solitude of a man who often seemed more at home in fiction than in reality. Married twice, he fathered children, yet the golden glow of Hollywood could not shield him from the frailties of age. In the twilight of his life, Hyde suffered from Parkinson's disease, the very dignity that had defined him slipping away with each tremor. A man who had once held his head high, delivering lines with crisp authority, was left frail and struggling against an enemy he could not outwit. He died in 1991 at the age of 87, his final years marked by the slow, merciless erosion of the self, leaving behind a legacy of elegance, but a fate as cruel as it was inevitable. What do you think about the passing of the actors from Laverne Shirley, and who do you miss the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with our latest videos.